Welcome. You're listening to Sleepy Historian, a quiet place where history moves slowly, speaks softly, and never asks you to stay awake longer than you wish. You don't need to focus. You don't need to remember names or dates. You only need to let the words pass by at their own pace, like footsteps fading down a stone corridor. If you're listening late at night, you may already feel your body beginning to loosen its grip on the day. Your breathing may slow without instruction. Your thoughts may wander, then return, then wander again. That's exactly as intended. Tonight you are not here to be surprised. You are here to drift. And yet, quietly, without urgency, you will begin to understand something that often goes unnoticed. Many of the medieval customs that seem strange, uncomfortable, or even foolish to us now were not born of ignorance. They were not random habits. They were not acts of cruelty for their own sake. They were, in many cases, calm and deliberate responses to a world that pressed constantly against the human body. A world without steady heat, without reliable light, without clean water on demand, without clocks that agreed with one another, without medicine that could truly restore strength. To live in that world required a kind of quiet endurance. And endurance shaped custom. As you listen, you may notice that nothing dramatic happens. There are no great battles here. No kings shouting orders. No sudden disasters. Instead, there is time passing. There are routines repeated. There are small discomforts that never quite leave. And within those conditions, people made choices that allowed them to last a little longer. Some of those choices now feel strange, but they once made perfect sense. You might imagine for a moment that you are not watching medieval life from a distance. You are not standing apart from it, judging it with modern comfort behind you. Instead, imagine that you are simply present. You wake when others wake. You sleep when the light fades. You eat when food is available, not when a clock suggests it. You dress for warmth, not ease. You follow rules not because they are symbolic, but because breaking them brings slow consequences. There is no sense of progress here, only maintenance, maintaining warmth, maintaining health, maintaining reputation, maintaining place within a community that notices absence more than presence. This is a world where privacy is rare, silence is meaningful, and repetition is stabilizing. Customs grow not from imagination, but from pressure. Cold presses in from the walls. Hunger presses in from the stomach. Darkness presses in from the edges of the day. And so people respond, calmly, steadily, again and again. As we move through this history together, you'll encounter customs that seem uncomfortable at first glance, sleeping arrangements that remove privacy, clothing that restricts movement, rules that control speech, cleanliness, and even rest. But you'll notice something else as well. These customs are rarely extreme. They are rarely urgent. They do not rush. They slow the body down. They regulate it. They conserve it. In a world where sudden change is dangerous, sameness becomes safety. You may also notice that death is never far away, but it is never shouted about. It arrives quietly. It is expected, but not obsessed over. Mourning does not come for everyone, and this is understood without ceremony. That understanding shapes behavior in subtle ways. People prepare without panic. They endure without complaint. They follow customs not because they are enforced loudly, but because they work. As you listen, you might find your own sense of time beginning to blur. Minutes stretch. Thoughts repeat themselves with slight variations. The rhythm becomes familiar. This is intentional. The medieval world did not reward alertness alone. It rewarded patience, and patience is what this story offers you now. If at any point you fall asleep, that's perfectly fine. The customs will continue without you. They always did. And if you remain awake, listening quietly, you may begin to see how much of modern comfort is built on the slow disappearance of these older pressures, not because medieval people were wrong, but because the world around them finally changed. Before we continue, you might gently remind yourself that you can always return. You can listen again. You can drift in and out without missing anything essential. If you enjoy these long, quiet journeys through history, you may choose to like the video or subscribe to Sleepy Historian. So these stories are here for you whenever the nights feel long. For now, there is nothing to do. Just listen and let the past move at its own pace. In the first stretch of this journey, we'll begin with the body itself. How medieval people slept, woke, ate, and dressed, and why these everyday customs, strange as they seem now, were once the most reasonable choices available. Time will pass slowly, and that too will make sense. Night does not arrive suddenly in the medieval world. It seeps in, slowly, as the light thins and colors soften. There is no sharp division between day and night, only a gradual dimming, like breath leaving the body in stages. You feel it first in the air. The warmth of the day loosens its hold, and the cold begins to press gently at your skin. Not enough to alarm you, just enough to remind you that warmth must be conserved. Sleep here is not a private retreat. It is a shared condition. You do not go to bed alone unless circumstance forces it. Beds are heavy, expensive objects filled with straw, wool, or rough feathers, and they are meant to be used fully. Empty space is wasted warmth, so you lie down beside others, family members, apprentices, travelers passing through, sometimes children, sometimes elders whose breathing has slowed and grown uneven with age. The closeness is practical, not intimate. Bodies pressed together reduce heat loss. Breath warms the air beneath blankets. Movement is minimal, because movement lets warmth escape. You learn quickly how to rearrange yourself, which side keeps you warmer, which bodies radiate more heat, which positions allow you to sleep without waking stiff and aching. Privacy is not expected. It is not missed, because it has never been promised. In the dark, no one speaks much. Words cost energy. Silence conserves it. Sleep itself does not arrive all at once. Instead, it comes in layers. You lie down when the light fades enough that work is no longer efficient. Your body relaxes, but only partially. You drift, wake, drift again. This is not insomnia. It is normal. The night is long, especially in winter, and uninterrupted sleep is rare. After a few hours, eyes open quietly. Not in alarm, just in awareness. This waking period belongs to the night as much as sleep does. You may sit up slightly, adjust the blanket, listen to the sounds of others breathing nearby. Someone may rise to tend the fire, adding a small piece of wood, careful not to wake anyone fully. Sometimes people speak softly during this middle waking, murmured prayers, brief conversations, planning for the next day, spoken in low tones as if the night itself is listening. Then slowly, sleep returns. This pattern makes sense here. The body rests in segments because the night demands it. Darkness is too long to remain unconscious throughout. Fire must be watched. Children may stir. Animals outside may make unfamiliar sounds. A sleeping household is never fully asleep. And so, rest is shared, layered, and flexible. Morning does not arrive with an alarm. It arrives with light. You wake when enough daylight enters the room to make movement possible. In winter, this may feel late. In summer, early. The body adjusts without complaint. There is no sense of lost sleep, because sleep was never meant to be solid and uninterrupted. It was meant to fit around survival. The strangeness of this, to modern ears, lies in the closeness. Sharing beds, sharing air, sharing the small sounds of discomfort and rest. But in a world where cold is persistent and space is limited, this closeness is safety. If someone grows ill during the night, it is noticed quickly. If someone fails to wake during the quiet middle hours, it does not go unseen. Some did not wake again, and that was known. But more often, waking together meant surviving together. Even when space allowed for separate sleeping areas, doors were left open. Walls were thin. Sound traveled easily. Isolation at night was dangerous. To be alone meant no shared warmth. No one to notice if you struggled to breathe. No one to tend the fire if it failed. So customs formed that kept people together. Children slept where they were warmest, not where they were quietest. Guests were offered a place near the hearth, even if it meant crowding. Servants slept close enough to hear a call, not far enough to rest deeply. Sleep here is not sacred. It is functional. The body is allowed to rest only as much as the environment permits. And so, waking in the night does not carry anxiety. It carries acceptance. You adjust. You wait. You listen. The slow breathing of others becomes part of your own rhythm. In time, it lulls you back toward rest. This shared sleep shapes the mind. You become accustomed to being observed, even while resting. You learn to still your movements, to breathe quietly, to settle without disturbing others. Even dreams feel closer to the surface, easily interrupted, easily returned to. The night passes not as a blank space, but as a series of gentle transitions. Light fades, sleep comes, waking returns. Sleep settles again. By morning you do not feel refreshed in the modern sense, but you feel intact. Your body has endured the night. That is enough. What seems strange now? Sleeping beside others, waking in the dark, resting in fragments, once made perfect sense. It conserved warmth. It maintained awareness. It kept people alive through long, uncertain nights. And as the day begins, there is no rush to change this pattern. Because night will return, and when it does, the body already knows what to do. Food in the medieval world does not arrive according to a schedule written down anywhere. There is no fixed hour that announces itself with certainty. There are no bells for meals alone, no uniform understanding of when one should eat. Instead, eating follows the body. You eat when work allows it, when light allows it, when the body signals that strength is beginning to thin. Hunger is familiar, but it is not alarming. It comes and goes like the weather. You learn to read it the way you read clouds or wind. Morning often begins with food that feels heavy by modern standards. Thick bread, porridge dense enough to hold heat, leftover stew, reheated slowly near the fire. This is not indulgence. It is preparation. The day ahead is long, and warmth will be required from within. Food is fuel, but more than that, it is insulation. You notice how your body responds, how the heaviness settles low and steady, keeping you grounded, how lighter foods leave you feeling exposed, quicker to tire. So meals are chosen for endurance, not enjoyment. There is no snacking. Food is too valuable to be eaten casually. Each meal has purpose, and between them, the body learns to wait. Midday meals are taken when work reaches a natural pause, not when a clock dictates, but when the body signals fatigue. Hands slow, muscles stiffen, attention begins to wander. Then food appears. Often it is simple. Bread torn, not sliced. Cheese shared. A pot passed between people, each taking what they need, not what they want. Conversation is minimal. Eating demands attention. You chew slowly, not out of politeness, but necessity. The food is coarse. It requires effort. Rushing would cause discomfort later, and discomfort lingers longer than hunger. Evenings bring lighter meals, or sometimes none at all. This is one of the customs that seems strange now. Why eat less at night when hunger may still be present? Because the body must rest. Heavy food at night burdens digestion, pulling warmth inward when it is needed elsewhere. Sleep comes easier when the stomach is quiet. Breathing feels steadier. The body cools more evenly. So you eat enough to settle, not enough to weigh you down. Fasting, too, is common, but not always religious in origin. Sometimes food simply runs low. Sometimes the body feels sluggish and needs emptiness to reset. The idea that constant fullness equals health does not exist here. Instead, health is balance. Too much food dulls the senses. Too little weakens the body. The space between is learned through repetition, not instruction. Children learn this early. They are not encouraged to eat beyond comfort. They are not distracted into eating. Food is presented, consumed, and finished without ceremony. The body becomes trustworthy. There is also the matter of digestion itself. Medieval understanding places great importance on internal heat. Digestion is seen as a kind of controlled burning. Too much food extinguishes it. Too little leaves it unstable. So meals are timed to support this internal fire. Morning, when the body is strongest. Midday, when work demands replenishment. Evening, when rest approaches. This rhythm feels natural within the day's slow arc. There is no pressure to eat at the same time every day. Winter days stretch meals closer together. Summer spreads them apart. The body adjusts without anxiety. What feels strange now is the lack of constant access. No cupboards to open at will. No stored abundance waiting quietly. Food exists in cycles like everything else. You feel hunger, then you eat. You feel fullness, then you work. You feel emptiness again, and you wait. This waiting sharpens awareness. Taste becomes vivid because it is not constant. Warmth from food spreads slowly and is noticed. Energy gained is used carefully. There is also restraint shaped by experience. Illness often follows excess. Heavy meals precede sleepless nights. Poor digestion weakens the body over days, not hours. So customs develop that seem restrictive, but are protective. Eat slowly. Eat together. Eat what is available. Stop before discomfort. These rules are not written. They are learned, and over time they become habit. You come to trust the rhythm. Your body learns when food will arrive. Hunger loses its sharpness. In a world where survival depends on steady strength, eating becomes another form of discipline, not harsh, not joyless. Simply measured. What seems strange now, heavy mornings, light nights, long gaps, once made perfect sense. The body was listened to, and the body, given time, responded. Clothing, in the medieval world, is not designed to disappear against the body. It is meant to be felt. You notice it the moment you dress. The weight settles onto your shoulders. The layers press inward, firm but familiar. Nothing hangs loosely without purpose. Movement is possible, but it is moderated. This too feels strange to modern understanding. Why would people choose garments that restrict bending, turning, or reaching? Why bind the body when freedom of movement seems so natural? But freedom here carries risk. Loose clothing catches on tools, wide sleeves brush against flame. Unsecured fabric lets cold air travel freely along the skin. So garments are shaped to contain the body. Tunics are fitted close enough to retain warmth. Belts cinch fabric inward, preventing heat from escaping and tools from shifting. Hose cling tightly to the legs, reducing drag and conserving warmth. Even the stiffness of certain materials serves a purpose. Thick wool resists wind. Leather holds its shape and protects against abrasion. Layer upon layer creates a stable pocket of air around the body, insulating without bulk. You become aware of how clothing guides your posture. Straight-backed walking conserves energy. Sudden movement strains seams and muscles alike. Careful motion becomes second nature. There is no need to rush. The day does not reward speed. It rewards steadiness. Clothing also distributes labor across the body. Heavy garments remind you to lift carefully, to bend at the knees, to avoid unnecessary strain. In a world without reliable medical care, preventing injury matters more than recovering from it. So customs form that favor containment over ease. You lace, fasten, tie, and secure. Nothing is left to chance. Even shoes reflect this philosophy. They are thin, flexible, and closely fitted, not cushioned, not designed for comfort in the modern sense. They allow you to feel the ground, mud, stone, frozen earth. This awareness reduces missteps. You learn where to place your weight. You walk with attention, not speed. Clothing also communicates belonging, not through fashion, but through function. You dress like those around you because shared clothing habits reflect shared survival strategies. Deviation draws attention. Attention invites questions. It is safer to blend. Bright colors are rare and costly. Muted tones hide dirt and wear. Repairs are visible and accepted. A patched garment is not a sign of failure. It is proof of endurance. You wear the same clothes day after day, season after season, adjusting layers as needed. There is no sense of freshness attached to newness. Instead, familiarity brings comfort. The body learns the garment's shape. The fabric softens with use. Movement becomes efficient within its limits. Even restrictions around undressing have meaning. You do not remove layers unnecessarily. Exposed skin loses heat quickly. Modesty aligns with warmth. Customs around covering the head, the neck, the hands, all emerge from the same pressure. Cold seeks entry wherever it can. So you close openings, you bind edges, you overlap layers. What seems cumbersome now once provided stability. You rarely feel unprepared. Your clothing is predictable. Its weight reminds you of your limits. Its resistance keeps you from pushing too far. Fatigue is managed not by comfort, but by constraint. As the day wears on, you become aware of the quiet agreement between body and garment. The clothing does not fight you. It slows you. And slowing here is safety. At night, when layers are loosened but not fully removed, the body cools gradually. There is no sudden exposure, no shock. Sleep arrives more evenly. In this way, clothing becomes part of the daily rhythm. Dress, work, rest, repeat. What feels restrictive now once protected joints, skin, and breath. It conserved warmth, prevented injury, encouraged patience, and in a world where patience meant survival, clothing that limited movement made perfect sense. Cleanliness, in the medieval world, does not mean what it means now. It is not about constant washing. It is not about removing every trace of dirt. It is about keeping the body sealed. You become aware of this early in life. Skin is not just skin. It is a boundary. And boundaries must be protected. Water, especially warm water, is treated with caution. It opens the body. It softens the skin. It invites vulnerability. You may feel the dirt on your hands, on your face, beneath your nails. But dirt here is familiar. It settles without urgency. Water, on the other hand, changes things. Bathing loosens the pores. It draws heat outward. It leaves the body exposed in a way that lingers long after the water is gone. Illness often follows bathing, not immediately but quietly, over the next days. A chill that does not lift. A cough that settles into the chest. A weakness that grows instead of fades. These patterns are noticed. So customs form. You wash your hands and face when needed. You rinse visible dirt. You wipe with cloth. But full immersion is rare. Baths are taken only when conditions are right, when the weather is warm, when illness demands it, when the body can be dried and warmed immediately afterward. Even then, bathing is brief. There is no lingering. Soap, when available, is harsh. It strips oils from the skin, leaving it dry and cracked. Cracks invite cold. Cold invites sickness. So the body is left mostly as it is. Smell, too, is understood differently. You notice odors, but they do not signal neglect. They signal information. Sweat indicates labor. Sourness may indicate illness. Strong, unfamiliar smells draw attention. The body tells its story openly. Covering that story entirely would remove warning signs. Cleanliness, then, is selective. You clean what must be cleaned. Wounds are washed carefully, not excessively. Clothing is aired, brushed, mended. The skin itself remains largely untouched. There is also the matter of water quality. Clean water is not guaranteed. Streams carry runoff. Wells vary by season. Bathing in uncertain water carries risk that cannot be seen, so restraint becomes wisdom. Children are taught early not to overwash, to keep warm instead, to dry thoroughly if water is used. You learn that the body's outer layer serves a purpose. Dirt insulates. Natural oils protect. Removing them too often weakens the barrier. This understanding may not be written in books, but it is reinforced by experience. Those who bathe frequently are often ill. Those who do not tend to last longer through winter. So bathing becomes occasional, purposeful, controlled. What feels unhygienic now once felt cautious. Cleanliness was not about appearance, it was about survival. To remain sealed against the world. When illness appears in the medieval world, it rarely announces itself sharply. It arrives as a soft disturbance, a heaviness in the limbs, a warmth that feels wrong, a fatigue that lingers longer than expected. You do not rush to correct it. The body, here, is understood as a system that must remain balanced. Too much energy is as dangerous as too little. Movement, heat, and fluid are watched carefully. So medical practice aims not to stimulate, but to restrain. This is where customs begin to feel especially strange to modern understanding. Why remove blood from a body that already feels weak? Why restrict food when strength seems needed? Why insist on rest when rest has already been forced by illness? But these practices emerge from careful observation over time. Illness is seen as excess of heat, of fluid, of imbalance. The body is believed to be overwhelmed, not invaded, so the response is to lighten the load. Bloodletting, for example, is not violent or hurried. It is controlled, measured. A small release is thought to reduce internal pressure, to calm the system, to allow the body to reset itself slowly. The goal is not cure, it is stabilization. Likewise, purging is intended to remove what does not belong, to clear stagnation, to prevent deeper harm. Food is reduced because digestion requires energy that the body can no longer spare. So meals become smaller, simpler, sometimes absent. Rest is enforced not as comfort, but as discipline. You are told to remain still, to avoid excitement, to keep the body from drawing on reserves it cannot replace. Movement here is dangerous. Excitement quickens the pulse. Quickened pulse increases heat. Heat worsens imbalance. So calm is prescribed. Rooms are kept dim, voices lowered, visitors limited. The sick person becomes quiet. This quiet is not abandonment, it is care. Others watch from a distance. They bring water. They adjust coverings. They observe. Progress is slow. Some recover gradually. Some do not. There is no expectation of dramatic improvement. Healing, when it happens, takes time. What feels strange now is the acceptance of weakness. There is no push to fight illness, no encouragement to push through. The body is allowed to retreat. This approach aligns with the realities of the world. Medical intervention is limited. Overexertion often leads to collapse, so slowing the body becomes the safest option. Customs form around this understanding. The ill are discouraged from work long before collapse. Signs of imbalance are respected. Ignoring them is seen as reckless. You learn to recognize the early signals. A loss of appetite, a change in sleep, unusual warmth or chill. And when these appear, restraint follows. The body is treated like a fire that has grown unstable. You do not add fuel, you reduce it carefully. These practices, though imperfect, reflect a deep caution. Better to preserve life slowly than to gamble on sudden recovery. What seems counterintuitive now once felt prudent. Medical care was about endurance, not victory, and in a world where survival depended on lasting through uncertainty, slowing the body made sense. When sickness lingers, it changes how space is used. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but with small adjustments that grow over time. You may notice people standing a little farther away, voices becoming quieter, the flow of daily movement shifting around you rather than through you. Isolation, in the medieval world, is not enforced with authority. It is shaped by habit. The community does not panic. Panic wastes energy. It disrupts routines that keep everyone steady. Instead, distance is introduced slowly. A separate corner of the room, a bench moved closer to the wall, a bed placed nearer to the door or window. This placement allows air to move. It allows observation without closeness. You are not abandoned. You are adjusted. Food is left within reach, but not handed directly. Water is placed nearby. Cloths are changed quietly. Others watch for signs. A cough that deepens. A fever that does not break. Breathing that grows shallow. If illness worsens, customs become clearer. You may be moved to a separate space, not far, but apart. A side room. A shed. Sometimes simply a bed placed closer to an open doorway. Fresh air is valued. Stagnation is feared. There are markings, sometimes subtle. A cloth hung in a doorway. A symbol drawn quietly. A bell used sparingly to signal presence, not alarm. These signs do not accuse. They inform. People adjust their paths. Children are kept back. The elderly remain at a distance. Care continues, but contact lessens. This balance is careful. Too much closeness spreads illness. Too much distance invites neglect. So customs settle in between. Visitors are limited. Those who come do so with purpose. They do not linger. The sick person becomes still. Time stretches. Days blur together without clear boundaries. Light shifts. Sounds soften. Recovery, if it comes, does so quietly. If it does not, the decline is gradual. There is no sudden announcement, no moment of chaos. One morning, breathing does not resume, and life continues. The customs around isolation prepare everyone for this possibility, without naming it directly. Belongings are simple. There is little to sort. Rituals are familiar. The body is treated with the same restraint that guided life. Isolation here is not punishment. It is protection. Protection for the community. Protection for the sick, who are allowed rest without demand. This approach reflects the limits of the time. There is no cure for many illnesses. There is only management. Distance becomes a tool. What seems cold now once felt careful. Keeping space was a way of preserving as many lives as possible, without disrupting the fragile balance of daily survival. Isolation customs made sense because they slowed contagion without halting life entirely, and in a world where stopping meant starvation, that balance mattered. Order in the medieval world is not maintained through constant force. Force is expensive. Force injures bodies that are already needed for work. So discipline takes a quieter form. You see it in the square, in the market, near the church doors. Punishment is visible, but it is rarely violent. This is one of the customs that feels most unsettling to modern eyes. Why expose someone publicly instead of harming them quickly and privately? Why rely on watching rather than pain? Because pain heals slowly, and memory lasts longer. Public punishment works by reminding everyone of their place. The stocks, for example, are simple wooden frames. They hold the body still. They do not injure. You are placed where others can see you. Your movement is limited. Your discomfort grows with time, not intensity. People pass by. Some glance, some do not. The shame comes not from shouting, but from stillness. You cannot hide, you cannot work. You cannot blend into the background. Time stretches. This matters more than pain. Pain ends, but hours spent being seen settle into memory. The community learns without spectacle. There is no cheering, no excitement. Children are present, but not encouraged to mock. They observe quietly. The lesson is not cruelty, it is consequence. Public punishments are often brief, a few hours, sometimes a day, long enough to disrupt routine, not long enough to destroy the body. Because the body is valuable. Even those who break rules are needed. They harvest. They repair. They carry. Killing or maiming them weakens everyone. So the law preserves function. Other punishments follow the same logic. Standing with a sign, being placed on display. Temporarily exclusion from shared spaces. The goal is reintegration, not removal. Once the time passes, the person returns to work. The incident fades. There is no permanent record. Memory replaces documentation. This system relies on proximity. People live close together. They depend on one another. Reputation matters because it determines cooperation. So shame becomes a regulating force. Not loud, not dramatic. Just present. What feels harsh now once felt restrained. public punishment without violence allowed order without waste, and in a world where every able body mattered, that restraint made sense. In the medieval world, presence is safety, absence is risk. You notice this in the rhythm of life. Church bells mark not only prayer, but attendance. Markets open and close with expectation. Seasonal rituals call the community together. Participation is required, not always enforced with threat, but enforced with subtle pressure. Being seen matters. Your absence is noted. Neighbors observe. Families comment quietly. The body learns quickly. To be present is to protect. To be absent is to invite questions. Questions that may be inconvenient or even dangerous in a slow-moving world. You follow routines not for piety alone, but for belonging. Church is not spectacle. It is a checkpoint. You move among familiar faces. You exchange small gestures. You mark yourself as part of the collective. The market, too, is monitored in this way. Attendance confirms contribution. Absence signals withdrawal. Even casual gatherings carry weight. Rituals, feasts, and workdays all provide a framework for observation. Through constant visibility, danger is minimized. A wandering child is noticed quickly. A missing laborer is questioned gently but firmly. A stranger is seen, not ignored. Collective watching is not oppressive. It is protective. The community relies on each individual to follow patterns. Deviations are small but meaningful. One day of absence might go unnoticed. A week of absence raises concern. And the concern is practical. Those who do not appear may fail to tend fires, carry water, guard livestock, or prepare food. The slow consequences of absence outweigh immediate pleasure. You learn to move carefully, to maintain routine, and to respect the unspoken rules of observation. These customs shape behavior even when no authority is present. The gaze is constant, though quiet. You do not feel monitored in the way you might in a city today. There is no judgmental crowd, no spectacle, no expectation to perform beyond daily competence. Instead, the gaze exists to remind everyone that each person matters. Participation ensures survival, and through this, social cohesion forms. Even in silence, in observation, in repeated rituals, the world is kept in balance. What feels controlling now once preserved life. Mandatory attendance and collective watching are not about authority. They are about endurance. They are about noticing, adjusting, continuing. You see the body of the community move in measured ways, each individual an essential unit. And you learn, slowly, without urgency, that presence itself can be a form of care. Speech in the medieval world carries weight. It is not casual. It is measured. You learn early that words are not merely sounds. They travel. They persist. They shape relationships quietly, over time. There are customs dictating when and how to speak. Silence is valued, not because noise is inherently bad, but because unnecessary words waste energy, your own and others. In a crowded household, in a village, in a workshop, constant talking is disruptive. It drains warmth. It distracts attention. It breaks rhythm. So speech is deliberate. You speak when work requires coordination. You speak when information must be passed. You speak when ritual demands. Otherwise you listen. Listening is not passive. It is active participation. By hearing carefully, you learn the state of your surroundings. Who is well? Who is tired? Who may need help? Who is absent? Listening also preserves safety. A sudden word can startle animals, disrupt fires, or alert strangers. And sometimes silence itself communicates more than words could. You notice subtle cues, posture, gaze, small gestures, a nod, a shift of weight, a hand extended quietly. All of these carry information. Customs also dictate restraint in public speech. Gossip is controlled. Criticism is measured. Warnings are often implied rather than spoken. This prevents unnecessary conflict. Violence, after all, is costly. It consumes bodies that are already needed. Even children are taught these rules. They learn when to ask, when to respond, and when to remain still. Over time, the rhythm of speech becomes internalized. You do not need reminders. You speak, you pause, you listen, you adjust. In gatherings, silence and speech alternate in predictable cycles. The community functions through subtle communication, not dramatic statements. This discipline of words extends into ritual, labor, and leisure. Songs are learned slowly. Prayers are recited quietly. Work chants guide rhythm without overwhelming the senses. And when someone speaks out of turn, the correction is gentle, measured, proportional. There is no frenzy, no shouting, no spectacle. The emphasis is on preserving energy, maintaining harmony, and ensuring survival. What seems restrictive now once made perfect sense. Words cost effort. Energy is limited. The body must be preserved. Listening, restraint, and selective speech keep both the individual and community stable. In the quiet of medieval life, speech is a tool, precise, measured, protective. And when the day ends, the echo of measured words lingers, blending with fatigue, routine, and the slow movement toward rest. In the medieval world, survival is collective. No one endures entirely alone. Even strangers are assessed not just by who they are, but by how they share the same necessities of life. Hospitality is not generosity in the modern sense. It is a form of security. You notice it when a traveler approaches. The household prepares a place to sleep. A small portion of food is set aside. A fire is maintained even if it stretches resources thin. Nothing is wasted. Everything is calculated. The guest does not consume freely. They take only what is needed, and they contribute where possible. This balance is delicate. Too much sharing weakens the host. Too little exposes the community to conflict or danger. So customs emerge to regulate hospitality. Guests are greeted at the door, seating is assigned, distance is maintained at first, until trust develops. Food is portioned carefully, drinking water is offered slowly. Fires are tended cautiously. Even entertainment, conversation, or movement is guided. You learn to read the household as a map. Which areas are open? Which are restricted? Which bodies can move freely without disruption? Children observe all of this. They see that sharing is a structured act, not spontaneous. They learn when to approach, when to step back, and how to act quietly. Through these subtle cues, safety is maintained. Hospitality is never absolute. Strangers may be allowed in, but control remains. The household must continue functioning. The body, the food, the fire, all must endure. Even neighbors are monitored. Resources flow in cycles. Water, firewood, food, and lending too freely risks exhaustion. So social norms develop. Trust is earned. Behavior is measured. You do not mistake restraint for coldness. The household observes, provides, and balances. All gestures serve the dual purpose of survival and cohesion. Sometimes the sharing itself slows the body. You carry food carefully. You move water cautiously. You remain attentive to those around you. Fatigue is acknowledged. Pace is moderated. The guest adapts as well. They conform to routines. They conserve energy. They follow unspoken rules. Through repeated acts of measured hospitality, the community survives. What seems awkward now, strict sharing, slow provision, careful observation, once made perfect sense. Life was precious. Resources were finite. Bodies were vulnerable. Hospitality was a tool of endurance. And by the end of the day, when everyone rests, there is a quiet satisfaction in the knowledge that no one went without entirely, and that all survived the slow rhythms of the household together. Work in the medieval world is slow. It is not hurried. It cannot be hurried. You notice the rhythm immediately. Tasks are divided not just by ability, but by endurance. One person lifts, another carries. One sharpens tools while another prepares materials. The body is always measured against its capacity. Fatigue is expected, not avoided. It is built into the schedule. The day begins with labor that is light enough to warm the body but not exhaust it. Chores increase in intensity as sunlight strengthens and shadows shift. By midday, the body has adjusted to repeated motion, and effort is sustainable. Breaks are taken, not arbitrarily, but in response to internal cues. Hands grow sore, muscles stiffen, breathing becomes slightly heavier. Then, pause, water, adjustment of clothing, stretching of joints. Even in continuous work, the body is never pushed past the edge. This careful pacing extends to the group. Work is coordinated to ensure everyone maintains balance. If one falters, another slows. If someone overexerts, the team compensates. There is no competition. There is only endurance. You notice subtle cues. A hand resting on a hip, a shoulder leaning briefly, a slow shift of weight. These signals communicate need without words. The group responds instinctively. Food is interspersed. Small meals, portions measured, energy replenished slowly. The body learns to anticipate effort. It moves with predictability. The mind adjusts to repeated patterns. Even play or ritual follows similar pacing. Dance, song, or prayer is measured to avoid collapse. Excessive exertion is avoided because it jeopardizes survival. At day's end, labor slows. The body cools gradually. Tasks left unfinished are minimal. Completion is less important than steady progress. Rest is communal and deliberate. Sleep, layered with awareness, returns once more. The community has endured another day. This endurance is quiet. It is not heroic. It does not demand attention. It is simply life, lived in careful, repeated rhythms. What seems tedious now once ensured that everyone survived the long, uncertain days. Through measured work, deliberate breaks, and mutual awareness, the medieval body learns resilience. And the community thrives quietly, not through excitement or competition, but through repetition, observation, and cooperation. In the medieval world, rituals are everywhere, not grand or festive, but subtle, quiet, and purposeful. You notice them in the rhythm of life, the striking of a bell at dawn, the careful inspection of fire and water, the slow rotation of tools at the forge. Each act signals awareness. Each motion reinforces survival. Rituals are not only spiritual, they are practical. Before anyone eats, hands are washed, even briefly. Before work begins, tools are checked, sharpened, aligned. Before night falls, fires are tended. Doors are secured, animals are fed. The repetition is hypnotic. It slows the body, but it also trains it. Muscles remember. Eyes notice subtle changes in light and movement. Ears detect faint sounds in the distance. You participate quietly. You move deliberately. You follow cues that have been passed down to generations. Even minor mistakes are instructive. A fire left unattended smolders. Smoke drifts slowly, noticed by those nearby. A tool left misaligned catches the eye. A child straying too far is gently guided back. Through these repeated motions, the household maintains balance. No one person carries the burden alone. Each individual contributes to collective safety. Nightly prayers and brief blessings are part of this system. They are not dramatic declarations, but reminders of order, reminders of limits, reminders that attention must remain even during fatigue. These rituals stretch over hours, sometimes days. They do not escalate, they repeat. They enforce endurance rather than speed. Through repetition you internalize patterns. Your body responds without conscious thought. Your mind remains alert even in the slow drag of time. Children learn through observation. They notice that errors have consequences, but not in sudden violence. Correction is slow. Correction is gentle. Correction is part of survival, not spectacle. Rituals also maintain hierarchy quietly. They remind individuals of roles without confrontation. The elder leads the tending of the hearth. The apprentice observes and assists. The parent guides the child. All movements are small, deliberate, and protective. And yet the world feels safe, not because danger has vanished, but because preparation, attention, and repetition form an invisible safety net. What seems excessive now, constant small rituals, repeated attention, deliberate movement, once made perfect sense. They ensured that resources, bodies, and lives endured. They ensured that chaos did not grow unnoticed. They ensured survival without force. By the end of the day, even fatigue becomes a signal. You recognize it as a reminder to pause, to rest, to breathe. Ritual, like the slow rhythms of life, becomes a quiet protection, and in this way survival and calm coexist. Now, as the day in this medieval world draws to a close, you can feel the shift in rhythm. The fire burns lower. Shadows lengthen across stone floors and wooden walls. The quiet settles like a soft blanket. You have followed the customs that shaped life in ways both subtle and strict. You have observed meals taken for endurance, garments worn for protection, illness managed with restraint, and labor paced by awareness. You have seen hospitality balanced with caution, speech restrained for survival, and rituals that ensured order and safety. All of these practices, strange by modern eyes, made perfect sense in their own time. They were not arbitrary. They were learned responses to the slow, persistent pressures of a world that demanded endurance. And now, as night deepens, there is a kind of release. You feel it in your body, the ease of laying down, the gentle heaviness of limbs, the slow exhale of breath. You realize that the quiet rules, the repetition, the deliberate pacing have guided you safely through a world that might have seemed harsh, but was in fact carefully structured to sustain life. The lessons linger. The weight of understanding settles gently in your mind. Patience, observation, restraint, endurance, these were not just survival tools but ways of living fully in a world without modern certainty. You may never return to this time, but the principles remain clear, that care, attention, and measured action can preserve life, that routine, when observed with calm purpose, can guide bodies and minds through uncertainty, that community, even quiet and subtle, forms a web of protection stronger than any single effort. The medieval world, with all its customs, its restraint, and its slow rhythms, teaches you something quiet but profound, that survival need not be loud, that endurance need not be spectacular, that life, lived deliberately, can sustain itself even through hardship. And as the fire dies down to embers, and night enfolds the village, you release your awareness into the gentle dark. You do not need to conclude or resolve. You simply observe the calm order that persists. You feel your body responding to its own rhythms. You allow sleep, fatigue, and reflection to flow naturally, without pressure. The world slows. You slow with it, and in this shared quiet, there is a sense of safety. Not loud, not dramatic, but present. The lessons of a time long past remain, and in their silence they speak. You drift gently toward rest, carrying the weight of understanding lightly. The customs, once strange, now make sense. The body and mind settle, and the night continues quietly as it always has.